Oddity fine. I got some economic hawks, a gin and tonic on the rocks, where angels fear to tread. I say, choose your booze, let's hit the red eye. Think of young Diana Durbin and how she sung on rum and bourbon. Or enhance your luncheon hour with a planter's punch and a whiskey sour. If you feel like a wreck, try a horse's neck or a sherry with a cherry in the new finer size. If you don't name your poison, I'll have to get the boys in. The spirit of adventure opens one's eyes.
Metal Gen, are we prepared?
In lieu of Valentine's Day, we've prepared a really fun one for you.
Yes. A interesting tale, which I have not had the pleasure of reading, like my co-host.
And it stars one of my favorite extra ponies, and I was actually kind of angry when he did not get a speaking role in the Apple Family Reunion episode.
Semantics.
But, yeah, that hardly matters now.
Anyway, we present for your auditory pleasure, Braeburn's Dating Bonanza.
By Lycan01.
Anyway, let it begin. Braeburn Apple thought that a week-long visit to Ponyville to visit his cousins would be nice and fun. For most of the first day there, it was. His relatives, Applejack, Big Macintosh, Applebloom, and Granny Smith, were all excited and happy to see him. They spent much of the day catching up, laughing, joking, trading stories, and just generally enjoying each other's company. But later that evening, things took an odd turn. Braeburn and Applejack had been lounging in the living room enjoying some warm apple cider in front of the fireplace. Everybody else had gone to bed, and the topic of discussion had turned towards Applejack's friends. And Braeburn had made the mistake of cracking the joke.
Any of them single?
Applejack had not gotten angry, nor did she laugh it off, as one might have expected. Instead, the farm pony grinned widely. It was a grin that terrified Braeburn.
Now, cuz, why didn't you say you were looking for a special somepony?
Applejack asked with almost frightening enthusiasm.
We need to fix this pronto.
Braeburn blinked in confusion and concern.
But that was just a joke. Oh, I know.
Applejack gave a dismissive wave of a hoof, but that worrisome grin remained.
Don't mean there ain't a nugget of truth behind it, though. Why, I can't rest easy knowing that my cousin is cold and alone with no pony to call his own, and while I'm doing nothing about fixing it.
Braeburn smiled sheepishly.
Well, no, I wouldn't say I'm your luck. All my friends are single.
Applejack beamed, ignoring his protests.
And you've met him. Y'all got along great, remember?
Braeburn shrugged.
Well, I guess so. All of them except that one pink poofing maiden one. She's a bit too random. I don't think I could keep up with her. Or anything. And she said. And she, did kinda start a war.
He muttered uncomfortably. Applejack's grin faltered for a moment, and she smiled nervously.
Alright. Yeah. That, well, still, got 4 others who ought to do just fine.
Braeburn snorted and smiled.
Cousin, you ain't got to worry about it. I'm not lonely. I'm not looking for any pony. I'm fine. It's just a joke.
Applejack frowned.
Braeburn, how many of the single males in Appaloosa have you asked out?
Braeburn pondered for a moment.
All of them I'd be interested in, I think. And how many of them said yes?
Applejack deadpanned. Braeburn stared at Applejack for a long moment. He then grinned sheepishly.
So, about these friends of yours.
The next morning, Applejack went into town to talk to her friends. Braeburn took over her responsibilities and chores around the farmstead. Having worked in the Appaloosa orchards under the scorching heat of the desert sun, bucking the trees on Sweet Apple Acres was no sweat for the Western-themed stallion. After several hours of beating the tar out of the countless apple trees, Braeburn heard Applejack's voice hollering his name in the distance, heralding her return home. Putting his tree kicking on hold, he galloped back to the farm to see what she was hollering about. It turned out that Applejack had wound up having some luck with talking to her friends about Braeburn. A lot of luck.
What do you mean they all want to go on a date?
Braeburn asked in horror, recoiling back a few steps.
Exactly as it sounds, Braeburn.
Applejack replied with a cheerful nod.
They all want to give it a shot and see how things fare. Man, it's not like you have to go out with all of them at the same time. I made sure to schedule.
Braeburn's horror increased.
You've already set him up? Yep.
Applejack grinned excitedly.
First one's in about 15 minutes. With little old Fluttershy.
Braeburn stared.
Did you just say 15 minutes? And scene change.
Meanwhile, elsewheres, Braeburn made to Fluttershy's house, which was on the opposite side of town, in about 14 minutes and 57 seconds.
Oh, perfect timing.
Yep. Applejack had galloped alongside him for a part of the trip, cheerfully telling him all about Fluttershy, about her cottage, about her sweet little pet bunny rabbit, bullshit. About how
you know, in previous stories, I have referred to this little bunny rabbit as a hellspawn. However, I've decided to rescind all of my statements. He is not a hellspawn, he is a spawn of Azathoth, which is even worse.
Meh. And about how she was very shy and timid, about all she was gentle and caring, and about her love of nature, especially animals and trees.
She really likes trees. I mean, really likes trees.
Jesus, Jack jumping. I'm getting flashbacks.
This is a clever reference to another little fanfic entitled
I'd like to be a tree.
By a guy called Totally Not Furry. I'll put a link to that in an annotation.
And so Braeburn galloped right up to the front door of Fluttershy's little woodland cottage, trying not to look winded, out of breath, or otherwise half dead. His composure regained, he knocked on the door, took off his hat, and put on the most charming and cheerful smile he could muster. The front door opened, and there was no pony there. Braeburn stared at the empty doorway for a moment, utterly confused, before he realized there was actually something there. Down on the floor, a little white bunny rabbit was staring up at Braeburn. Well, not staring, glaring. Braeburn's smile wavered slightly as he realized the little bunny was glaring at him with the hatred of 1,000 angry rodents. He was not happy to see him. At all.
Oh, hey, little guy.
Braeburn said nervously, still trying to be cordial.
You must be Angel. Spawn of Azathoth.
The bunny continued to glare hatefully. A soft, gentle voice called out from somewhere beyond the rabbit-guarded portal.
Who's at the door, Angel? Is that Mr. Braeburn?
The sound of soft, light hoofsteps could be heard approaching the door. The little rabbit immediately ceased its glaring and tried his best to look cute and innocent.
Well, eat shit can't really do. Anyway!
A yellow Pegasus with a pink mane suddenly appeared in the doorway. Or rather, she timidly peeked her head around the doorway, cautious and wary of who or what may be standing outside. As her eyes fell upon Braeburn, she retreated slightly.
Hello.
Fluttershy politely greeted him, a nervous tremor in her voice. Braeburn smiled kindly and gave a small nod.
Howdy, Miss Fluttershy. Nice to see you again. Applejack said you wanted to go for a walk with me.
A soft smile appeared on Fluttershy's features, and she relaxed slightly.
Oh, yes. I have to go run an errand in the nearby woods. I thought that you might like to,
She began to blush and averted her gaze.
Applejack said you,
Braeburn put his hat on and smiled comfortingly.
Don't worry, Miss Fluttershy. You ain't got nothing to be nervous or shy about. We're just two friends going for a walk. Just think of it like that.
Fluttershy stared for a moment, slinking back slightly as she thought of what he had said. However, the smile soon returned with slightly more confidence.
Oh, all right. When you put it that way, let me just grab my saddlebags.
A short while later, Braeburn and Fluttershy were off on a little trek through the woods. Thankfully, Angel, the hate-filled bunny, stayed behind to watch the cottage, though he did give the "I'm watching you" paw gesture to Braeburn as they left. The journey itself was relatively uneventful. In fact, it was somewhat awkward. Fluttershy lived up to her name. As hard as he tried, Braeburn just couldn't get it to open up. He tried to ask questions, he tried to toss out topics of discussion, he made jokes, but no matter what he did, she just didn't seem comfortable with an extended conversation, or conversation in general. She mostly just gave short, whispered, or muttered answers, and the occasional Braeburn stayed patient and respectful, though he was a proper gentle stallion, after all, and he wouldn't dare pressure her into talking more than she wanted to. But he was having serious doubts about whether or not they'd be able to make a proper date out of this, let alone a relationship. She was just too shy. Perhaps if she was more outspoken or assertive, or maybe even a tiny bit aggressive or something.
Clearly he was... Actually, no, he wasn't in town when Ironhoof rolled in.
Nope.
All right.
All right, we're here.
Fluttershy suddenly stated with a cheerful smile and almost uncharacteristic confidence in her voice. Braeburn did a double-take. That was the biggest smile she'd made all day. What had her so cheerful and confident all of a sudden? As he looked around the woods around them, he did another double-take.
Is that a cave?
He stammered. It was, in fact, a cave. A chunk of craggy hillside nearby held host to a large black abyss, like the sort a bear would live in.
There ain't a bear in there, is there?
Braeburn asked with a nervous smile.
Oh, don't be silly.
Fluttershy smiled softly. Braeburn let out a sigh of relief.
Of course there's a bear in there.
Braeburn's blood ran cold. Not just because she had affirmed his fears, but because she did it so enthusiastically.
Wait, what?
He squeaked. A deafening roar suddenly boomed from within the cave. Braeburn staggered back a few steps and stared in horror as Fluttershy casually trotted towards the cave. His horror increased tenfold, though, as the bear emerged from its cave, a towering monolith of fur and muscle. The brown-hued brute fixed its hungry eyes upon the little yellow Pegasus. Braeburn's instincts kicked in.
Miss Fluttershy!
He yelled, taking a step forward.
Look out, bear!
And then the unthinkable happened. Fluttershy, rather than screaming or crying or running, attacked the bear. With a feral roar of her own, and the timid little Pegasus jumped towards the earth sign and air tackled the beast's face. The bear let out what sounded like a small whine of utter terror, and quickly found itself sprawled out on the ground with a tiny, terrifying pony jumping up and down on its back.
Fatality!
Braeburn turned and galloped. He galloped like his life depended on it. Rather than being afraid of the bear, he is now afraid of Fluttershy. In fact, he was traumatized, permanently scarred by the timid pony's transformation into such a violent, brutal, terrifying monster.
No, now I have to do this.
You're going to love me!
But of course, what he didn't know is Fluttershy was just giving the bear a much-needed back massage and vertebral adjustment, which required quite a bit more force and intensity due to the creature's size and muscle mass. But Braeburn didn't know that. All Braeburn knew is he was permanently terrified of Fluttershy, and he would need therapy. A lot of therapy. Needless to say, Applejack was confused when Braeburn randomly galloped up, hugged her, began to sob incoherently in her mane.
I'll take it the day it didn't go too well then.
The orange mare deadpanned after a moment. She then smiled excitedly.
That's alright though. Ready for the next one? Rainbow Dash is down to see ya. And scene change.
Meanwhile, somewhere other than space and time, Rainbow Dash was not dying to see him, so much as he was dying to see what he was capable of.
A race?
Braeburn asked, raising an eyebrow and cocking his head to the side.
Yeah!
The right Rue Pegasus grinned, flying a quick circle around the confused stallion. They were standing just outside of town under the Cloud Manor that Rainbow Dash called home.
We're gonna race! Come on! It'll be fun!
I don't know.
Braeburn frowned uncertainly.
I mean, I know you're gonna beat me.
Dash hovered around in front of Braeburn.
No, I'm not.
she said with a friendly smile. After a short pause, though, she grinned confidently.
Okay, yeah, I'm totally gonna beat you. But that's not the point.
She exclaimed with a wave of her hooves.
I mean, I'm gonna go easy on you. Who knows? You may do awesomely. So come on, it'll be a fun challenge. Don't you like a challenge? If you're anything like Applejack, you should be super competitive.
Braeburn averted his gaze.
Well, I do kind of like challenges.
Excellent!
Dash hovered over to hang in the air, right beside him.
Then I'll let you do the countdown.
Braeburn chuckled.
Okay, ready then?
He hunkered down into a bracing position, preparing himself for the race.
You said 3 times around Ponyville?
Yeah.
Dash smirked, a look of confident determination forming on her features.
3 times around town, starting under my house.
Got it!
The stallion nodded.
Let's get ready then. 3, 2, 1.
For a moment, Braeburn didn't know what he was seeing. His mind didn't want to comprehend it. But finally, after several seconds of staring in shock, his brain finally caught up to reality. Dash was gone. Long gone. She was already so far ahead of him he couldn't even see her. What he could see, though, was a trail of rainbow-colored flame she left in her wake. Ground was on fire, burning in multiple shades of color. Braeburn was the most educated or scientifically knowledgeable pony, but he was pretty darn sure that that wasn't natural.
It's not.
He had just witnessed the law. Had he just witnessed the laws of physics being torn asunder?
No, he has not.
A blue blur streaked overhead, and the resulting wind blast ripped his hat right off his head. His mane left in a fluffed mess. Braeburn only stared slack-jawed as Rainbow Dash completed her first lap, before he'd even taken her first step.
Okay, if that's how you want to do this.
Braeburn growled, steeling his nerves against the overwhelming fear and confusion caused by Dash and her disregard for the laws of physics. He broke into a fierce gallop, plucking his hat out of the air with his teeth as he went. Determined not to lose, Braeburn gave everything he had into the race. A few minutes later, Rainbow Dash hovered down out of the sky to survey the gasping wreck of a stallion sprawled out in the dirt below her.
Braeburn, you alright?
She asked out of concern.
Out of breath.
The stallion rasped as it slowly tried to crawl along the ground.
How am I doing?
Dash averted her gaze.
You're about 2/3 of the way through your first lap.
Ed, where are you at?
Dash smiled awkwardly.
Oh, I'm already done.
Braeburn stopped crawling.
Oh,
Yeah.
The panting, worn-out stallion sat up and frowned.
well done. Sorry I couldn't be more of a competition for you.
Oh, that's alright.
Dash smiled before playfully punching Braeburn in the arm. The stallion winced.
Hey, if you want, I know something else we can do.
Braeburn raised an eyebrow.
Really? What you got in mind?
Rainbow Dash leaned in and smirked mischievously.
Oh, something special. You, me, and the ultimate test of endurance. Also a good test of reach and flexibility. What do you say?
Braeburn stared. He then promptly hopped up and galloped away as fast as hooves could carry him, vastly improving upon his speed from earlier. Dash whistled as Braeburn spread off.
Wow, he's faster than I thought. Pity he didn't want to play ping pong, though. Wonder if he'll have better luck with Rarity.
Granted, what she said is true about ping pong.
Yep.
Meanwhile, somewhere else.
Somewhere else in the not-too-distant future.
Next Sunday AD.
No.
Okay, I'm not going to continue that rant.
Next minute AD. Braeburn did not have better luck with Rarity. It was late in the afternoon, and Applejack was taking a break in the kitchen and sneaking a slice of apple pie when the stallion returned from his date.
Ah, Barbon.
Applejack grinned.
How did it?
She paused.
Oh, not very well, I see.
Braeburn, for the most part, looked a lot fancier than usual. He was wearing a nice suit, a far cry from his usual Western attire. Rarity had appreciated his outfit's rustic qualities, but felt he needed to look more presentable for their lunch. His mane was combed and styled, and his coat had been brushed and made to look quite shiny and spiffy. Overall, he should have been the perfect picture of a fancy gentle stallion. The dark bruising around his left eye, though, indicated that for all this fancy attire, he was still dreadfully susceptible to a black eye.
Yeah,
Braeburn frowned and looked around uncertainly.
Funny thing, it started out all nice and stuff. Then we got our food. I dove right in, and my ghastly table manners made a shriek. This big burly fella nearby thought I was causing him problems, so he galloped right on over and walloped me right in the face. Next thing I knew, arms sprawled out onto the floor, and Verity's checking to make sure I'm alright. Once she knew I was fine, she scurries off to have a chat with the stallion who laid me out.
He paused.
They have a date set for next Tuesday.
Applejack frowned.
Well, that's too bad.
After a few seconds, though, her usual over-enthusiastic grin returned.
Hey, Twilight had a no good spell to fix up that Plus, she's your next date. Wanna head on over to the library?
Braeburn smirked wistfully.
Sure, why not? Let me just change back in my normal clothes. This outfit is too damn hot. Meanwhile, at the library,
On the other side of town, she wouldn't stop talking. Braeburn was a patient stallion, but he never met a mare who talked so much until he actually sat down for tea with Miss Twilight Sparkle. The chipper purple unicorn had been more than happy to heal his black eye. She'd also been more than happy to tell him all about the spell, where she learned it, how long it took to learn, and how difficult it was to learn, etc. If Braeburn had told her to stop talking or to talk about something else, Twilight would have done so without much trouble. But unfortunately, Braeburn was too polite for his own good. He didn't want to tell Twilight to hush up, and because he wasn't saying anything, Twilight assumed he was inviting her to continue talking. Well, I listened with rapt attention, so she kept talking. And talking. And talking.
And talking.
The history of medicinal magic. The best-selling medical spellbook anthologies, famous equine doctors and nurses. Her own dabbling in medical science and magic. The other fields of magic she excelled at. Her affinity for learning and knowledge. Her favorite spells. And so on and so forth. Braeburn felt funny. It seemed as though he was starting to fall asleep. His breathing was becoming shallower. His pulse was slowing. And darkness began to teem the corner of his vision. But he didn't say anything. He just let Twilight keep talking.
And talking. And talking.
Then Braeburn realized something was wrong. Really wrong. Twilight was still talking. But her voice was becoming harder to hear. As if it was moving away and becoming more distant. It was becoming harder to think. The darkness was beginning to encroach further on his vision. Panic stabbed through Braeburn's slowing mind. This wasn't him falling asleep. This is him dying of boredom.
That is possible, apparently.
The stallion began to fight it, struggling to stay lucid and breathe. But it was losing battle. His breath was coming in slow, shallow gasp. His vision was almost entirely blacked out except for a dull light in the distance. He could also hear voices, familiar voices.
Is that you, Grandma?
Braeburn muttered weakly. Darkness fell.
Meanwhile, not in Pony Valhalla.
Meanwhile, elsewhere in this world, Braeburn awoke in the hospital. Or rather, he was awoken by somepony forcibly kicking him out of the hospital bed, through the air and into the wall.
What in tarnation?
Braeburn yelped as he collapsed to the floor in a crumpled heap of limbs, blankets, and a flimsy hospital gown.
Wag up, Salapana.
Applejack proclaimed with her usual over-enthusiasm and huge grin.
You're not gonna get any better just lying around all day.
Actually, the doctor said she gets lots of bed rest, but Applejack neither knew nor cared about that.
What happened?
Braeburn muttered weakly from his spot on the floor. His back was killing him, from both Applejack bucking him and the forceful collision with the wall. Actually, it looked like some of the plaster was cracked, like his spine.
Oh, you're just about dead.
Applejack shrugged flippantly.
Seems Twilight bored you to death, or near close to it. Thankfully, she managed to get you here in time for the docs to pick you up just fine. So come on, let's get you on out of here.
The yellow stallion shakily rose to his hooves.
And go where? Oh, Sugar Cube Corner, a local bakery.
Applejack chimed.
Oh, I'm gonna treat you to some cupcakes. Figured that up and feel better.
Braeburn smiled softly.
Cupcakes sure do sound nice. Alright, let me just grab my hat.
He paused to look down at his hospital gown.
And the rest of my clothes. You're always goddamn naked. Why is this an issue?
Meh. Meanwhile,
At Sugar Cube Corner.
elsewheres, Braeburn was in heaven. Applejack led him straight to Sugar Cube Corner where the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Cake, had set a large tray of cupcakes for them the moment they stepped inside. The cakes had told them to eat up, and that the baker would be out in a moment to see what they thought. Needing no further instruction, Braeburn immediately dove in. As he chowed down on cupcake after delicious cupcake, Braeburn realized he felt better than he felt in years, despite the fact he'd almost died of boredom hours before.
Oh, wow!
He exclaimed as he chomped into another frosting-covered sweet.
These are amazing! Not only are they good, but they even feel like they're good for you!
Applejack nodded enthusiastically, unable to speak as she chewed her own cupcake. Hey, having inhaled yet another cupcake, Braeburn sat back to rub his stomach and sigh contentedly.
Oh, wow! Best cupcakes I've ever had!
He proclaimed with a grin.
Why, if only I could find a nice man who could cook like this. I'd take her out for a date in a heartbeat. Thanks!
Irony. That super cheerful and super squeaky voice suddenly chirped. Braeburn nearly fell out of his chair in shock and surprise, and he quickly spun around in his seat to see who or what was behind him. The answer was a vibrantly pink pony with a cotton candy mane. Pinkie Pie!
Do you really mean that?
She asked with excitement sparkling in her eyes.
Yeah.
Braeburn nodded slowly, smiling sheepishly.
These cupcakes are, pretty darn good, Miss Pinkie Pie, right?
Right!
Pinkie replied with a series of rapid-fire nods.
And you're Applejack's cousin Braeburn. I remember you from Appaloosa.
Uh-huh.
Braeburn nodded awkwardly.
So, did you mean what you said about going on a date? Eat too?
Pinkie asked cheerfully before giving an innocently flirty flutter of her eyelashes. Braeburn blushed and recoiled back slightly.
Well, you see,
He stammered. Pinkie had been the one mare out of Applejack's friends that he just didn't want to go on a date with.
considering she started a war, I can understand that.
But now, she was actually asking him about it. He didn't want to be rude. Plus, he had said that thing about asking out a mare who could make cupcakes like that. And now the mare was standing right in front of him, and Braeburn was certainly no liar. He was an honorable stallion of his word. So, with a small sigh, Braeburn smiled at Pinkie Pie and nodded.
Yes, Miss Pie. I suppose I meant that too. Looks like we're going out on a date.
Great!
Pinkie said with an excited smile.
What do you want to do?
Applejack had been smiling through the exchange, but a sudden frown formed on her features. She leaned towards Braeburn and tried to whisper to him.
Whatever you do, don't ask her out to... How about dinner?
Braeburn smiled charmingly.
My treat! No.
Applejack deadpanned before shaking her head.
Well, there goes the wallet. Gal can eat like no upon his business.
She muttered under her own breath.
Woo! Dinner sounds awesome!
Pinkie grinned.
Just let me grab my purse. Oh wait, I don't have a purse. Never mind. I'm ready whenever you are, Mr. Braeburn.
Braeburn was taken slightly aback and quickly glanced around between Applejack and Pinkie.
Oh, wait. You want to go now? I mean, Applejack, do you mind if...
Applejack smirked and nodded to Pinkie.
Go on, attack him, Pinkie. I don't mind.
Yay!
Pinkie yipped. She promptly grabbed Braeburn by the shoulder and galloped towards the door, dragging the confused and slightly horrified stallion along for the ride. As the two lovebirds disappeared out the door, Applejack sat back in her chair, chuckled in amusement, and began to munch on another delicious cupcake.
Good luck, Braeburn. You're gonna need it. And you forgot the closing quotation. Sorry. and obligatory scene change to somewhere else.
The dinner date took place at one of the local Ponyville restaurants, a small cafe in the middle of town. Braeburn ordered a small sandwich and drink, while Pinky ordered several things of dessert off the dessert menu. As they waited for their orders, the two took a seat at a small table in a quick back corner of the coffee shop.
So,
Braeburn smiled across the table at Pinky.
tell me about yourself, Miss Pie.
Braeburn immediately regretted asking that question.
Just a minute. Well, I'm an assistant baker at Tricky Corner working for Mr. and Mrs. Cake. I also babysit for them, and I like to throw parties. In fact, my special talent is throwing parties and making ponies smile, and I also like making cupcakes and cookies and pie. Ice and snickerdoodles, which is a funny word, snickerdoodle. Do you know that snicker is another word for quiet laugh, like giggle or chuckle or Oh my gosh! I've never had this much of a tongue twister with Pinkie Pie before. It's just a funny word, snickerdoodle. Did you know snicker is another word for quiet laugh, like giggle or chuckle or actually, chuckle is a funny word in itself, but there are lots of funny words, especially some which Twilight uses when she's being all scientific and stuff, and...
Pinky suddenly stopped.
Wait, what were we talking about?
Braeburn blinked a few times.
I have no idea.
He blinked a few more times.
You, like to throw parties? Oh, yes!
Pinky squealed excitedly.
I love throwing parties, especially for new ponies moving into town. I always like to make them feel welcome and... I always like to make them feel welcome and make sure they're happy and they have lots of new friends.
She cheerfully explained. Braeburn grinned.
No kidding! I kind of like to do the same thing back in Appaloosa myself.
Now it was Pinky's turn to blink a few times as her mind processed this interesting revelation.
Revelation.
Yeah. Fucking hell, where's my brain tonight? Now it was Pinky's turn to blink a few times as her mind processed this interesting revelation. She suddenly leaned across the table and grinned.
Really?
Braeburn chuckled.
Yeah, really. Well, whenever some pony shows up, I usually gallop up to him and give him a warm Appaloosa welcome. Usually belting out, "Welcome to Appaloosa!"
He loudly and enthusiastically proclaimed, leaning back in his chair to throw his forelegs out in a wild gesture. Several of the other cafe patrons glared or whispered amongst themselves. Braeburn smiled sheepishly back at them before coughing and looking back at Pinky.
Sorry? Why are you sorry?
Pinky asked, tilting her head to the side in confusion.
That's awesome that you like to help out ponies feel welcome in town. That's exactly what I like to do. Only you do it without streamers and cake. Or do you use those too? Nah.
Braeburn said with a smirk and a shake of his head.
No streamers or cake, but there is pie. Fresh, baked apple pie.
Pinky's eyes widened.
Pie? Ooh, do you bake?
Braeburn blushed and bashfully averted his gaze.
Well, I dabble a bit. Ain't much of a chef, but most folks do like my apple pies, and apple fritters, and apple cinnamon muffins, and... So are you the town baker?
Pinky asked with an excited, chipper smile. Braeburn chuckled and shook his head.
Nah, I'm a farmer. I work on the orchard in Appaloosa, bucking apple trees. You know, like how my cousin Applejack works on sweet apple acres.
Pinky pondered thoughtfully.
Orchard, huh? Weird.
Braeburn raised an eyebrow.
How's that weird?
Pinky shrugged.
It's just weird.
Braeburn frowned slightly.
Why do you think my job's weird? No!
Pinky shook her head and smiled apologetically.
I don't think your job itself is weird. I just think that type of farming is weird. No crop rotation, for example.
Braeburn leaned back in his chair and grinned.
What would a man like you know about crop rotation?
Pinky giggled.
I used to be a farmer too, silly.
Braeburn's eyes widened.
No way! Yep.
Pinky nodded.
I grew up on a rock farm.
Braeburn found himself staring blankly, his expression neutral.
You're pulling my leg.
He deadpanned.
Nope.
Pinky said with an innocent smile.
Your legs are all unpulled right now, and I really did grow up on a rock farm. Most ponies don't realize it, but I'm actually really smart when it comes to farming and geology. I also like harvesting quartz. It looks pretty, and it's really important for watches and clocks and stuff. And it's another really fun little word.
Braeburn leaned forward and smiled. He'd completely forgotten about the food he'd ordered.
Well now, you don't say. Tell me more about rock farming, Miss Pie.
Pinky giggled.
Oh, you don't have to worry about calling me that. Call me Pinky.
Okay then.
Braeburn grinned.
Tell me more about how rock farming is less weird than apple farming. Pinky?
Meanwhile,
Much
back home,
later.
when Braeburn returned to Sweet Apple Acres that evening, dead tired, covered in confetti, and holding a cactus,
What?
Applejack had decided not to ask him about his date. He just assumed it went horrible and that Braeburn wouldn't want to talk about it. When she'd given him a curious glance, he simply gave her a goofy grin, laughed, and staggered off to bed. She figured Pinky had worn the poor stallion down, broken his mind, and crushed every remaining hopes he had for finding a gal in Ponyville.
Which would happen under most normal circumstances.
So Applejack was quite surprised the next morning at the breakfast table when Braeburn trotted in with a spring in his step and a grin on his face.
Morning, Applejack.
He enthusiastically proclaimed upon entering the kitchen.
Golly, I sure had a fun time yesterday with Pinkie Pie.
Applejack looked up from a coffee, newspaper, and confusion.
What? You had what now? Had fun.
Braeburn repeated, still grinning like an idiot.
Did you know she used to be a farmer?
Applejack dumbly blinked a few times.
What? Yeah, and she likes to greet new arrivals in the town, just like I do back in Appaloosa.
He explained enthusiastically. Applejack chuckled.
So, you don't care about all that stuff she did with the buffalo and whatnot?
Braeburn waved a hoof.
Water under the bridge. She's a really nice gal. I can't hold something like that against some pony like her. There are a few who can.
Applejack shook her head and smiled.
Sounds like y'all really hit it off.
She mused before going to take a sip of her coffee.
Yep.
Braeburn nodded.
And we're even gonna start dating.
Applejack choked on her coffee.
The what now? Yeah.
Braeburn exclaimed.
I mean, she's so nice and we really hit it off. And she really seems to like me. I gotta admit, cuz I think she's a really sweet gal. And, well...
His voice trailed off, a small blush creeping up on his cheeks.
I don't know. I think I'd be pretty lucky to have her as my special somepony.
Applejack stared.
In fact, I'm gonna visit more often to see her. And y'all too, of course.
He explained with a cheerful smile.
In a few weeks, I'll come in and stay with y'all. That way we can all hang out and I can visit Pinky too. Maybe take her out for a date. Or rather I see her a bit. Sometimes she'll even come and visit me when she gets tense.
Applejack continued to stare.
I've been Pinky promised to see her whenever I get the chance.
Braeburn proudly proclaimed. Applejack's stare turned into a look of horror.
Wait, what?
Braeburn raised an eyebrow at his cousin's expression.
What's wrong? Is that bad? That depends.
Applejack muttered with a nervous grin.
Do you intend to keep that promise? Well, of course.
Braeburn replied with an oblivious smile.
Like I said, I like the girl. So, yeah, I intend to keep my promise. I'm a stallion my word. Why? Is that a problem?
Applejack shook her head and smiled.
Braeburn, as long as you don't break a promise, it won't be a problem at all. And from the sound of things, I don't think either of you have anything to worry about. The end.
Well, that was something.
You know, I support this ship. Braeburn x Pinkie Pie.
I know.
Yeah, it's also going on in Beating the Heat, but when seen in another context like this, I really do support it.
Yep.
I am gonna give this story an 8.5 out of 10.
Same. It was nice, it was sweet.
And it was legitimately funny.
Yep.
Though I'm still wondering exactly if it is possible to bore someone to death.
Oh, yes, it is.
Really?
Yeah, more than likely. More than likely, all you have to do is just basically cause someone's senses just completely drop and fail. More than likely, you lock them in isolation for a long time until essentially they just give up and either commit suicide or just die in general.
This needs to be looked into. Not by me, though. I'm not in the sciences.
Yep.
Well, either way, though, that's the end of that story, and we hope you had a nice Valentine's Day, and yeah.
Yep, happy Singles Awareness Day. Good night, everybody.
And for those of you who are more fortunate than the two of us and actually have a girlfriend / boyfriend / whatever it is you're into, hooray for you.
Happy Singles Awareness Day and celebrating a day based upon a guy who got crucified. Yay, Saint Valentine.
Yeah, both of us are actually well versed in history. Look up Saint Valentine. All your perceptions of Valentine's Day will be destroyed instantly.
Some guy.
And we're just gonna leave you with that.
Jail cell.